as you turn back there, to Ephesians 6, one of the things that we have to be weary of, and one of the things that we demand of our children, or we think we're demanding, is the idea that they're going to follow God, right? We demand certain attitudes. We get upset if they have attitudes. We get upset if they do certain things. So then as dads, we ourselves, we have to do what we're told to do too. Right? We can't be hearers of the word. I think this is one of the biggest pitfalls. Maybe we have a relationship with God, or we're coming to church, or whatever it is, and we're hearing these things, and we go, oh, yeah. Oh, yep, look at that. Paul says I should be humble. He says I should be patient. And then I get home, and my kid does something, and I'm just like, ah! Right? And I just have this freak out. There's no blessing in hearing and not doing. My kids will not be blessed if I hear and don't do. So James has this real challenge about human anger. Do not think for a moment that human anger will ever accomplish it. And when our anger is exposed as dads, when we're frustrating our children, and what's the frustration he's talking about? Things like injustice. Things like, because I said so. Now, are there times for immediate obedience? 100%, right? If your kid's standing in the street and a car is there, you're not going to be like, now, son, if you could just step over here, that'd be great. Right? You're going to say, come here, and if they don't, you're going to reach out and you're going to grab them and you're going to pull them to safety, right? So we're not, there's no lack, there's no advocacy here for a lack of obedience or something like that, but the heart in which we exercise these things. We don't want to make our kids angry because we are being angry. We don't want to make our kids angry because we are being unjust. We don't want to make our kids angry because we're just lazy, right? When we look at how men were supposed to treat their wives, it's laying down their life as Christ laid down his life for the church, being crucified. See, the thing is, the way that male leadership has been so twisted throughout all of history is this idea that we're to lead in a way that satisfies us. That's never in the Bible. Being a dad, being a husband, being whatever, it's never in the Bible that we're to do it to satisfy ourselves or that we ourselves are served. It is always to lead for the betterment of our family. It's always to lead in the kindness and the gentleness so that our kids can grow up and be healthy and know the Lord and see what godliness looks like, right? Where it gets twisted is where anybody thinks the leadership is for me. No, the leadership, men are to be servant leaders, to lay down our lives. That's the call. And it's the same call to fathers. In fact, we're not to just, he doesn't say instruct them or encourage them in the ways of you. Instruct them and encourage them in what you think. Instruct them and encourage them in what they think, because they should be the boss. Or, no. It's instruction and encouragement in what God says. And what does he say? He says, be humble. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I hope we never leave that behind. Be humble. Again, I love C.S. Lewis. Humility is not to demean yourself. It doesn't mean like trash yourself. It's just not to think of yourself. That's the idea of humility. That I'm not taken up with myself. I'm not thinking about myself. I don't reference myself. That I'm just here, that God loves me. My identity is in Christ and who he says I am. His love for me, his care for me. And that in that I have a role. If I'm a family man, I have a role in that family. If I'm a father, I have a role in that father. And so also with ladies and what God's called you to in your life. But we have this responsibility. We've been given this role, and it's to be a humble, gentle servant that demands the obedience of our children in a humble, gentle, serving way, that instructs our children. The word instruct there, the word training there, because it's to train and instruct. The word training there, sometimes it gets translated disciplining, but it's the idea, it's not just singular like whoop your kids. It's encourage them. Encourage your kids. Give them hope. We want our kids to have hope. Remember, not hope like just desires, but expectation. Like when you get home at night, as a dad, your kids should be excited. I mean, obviously, they're teens, whatever happens, happens. But You know, there should not be a, oh no, Dad's going to get home. He's going to grab a few beers, and then things are going to get rough. They should have hope. Oh, Dad's going to come home. You know, if you're tired, then sit down. It's fine. But maybe, you know, wrestle with them. They should have hope. They should know my dad's going to take care of me. They should know bad things are going to happen if I ignore them, right? There should be a reverence there and understanding there, but they should have an expectation. He's going to take care of me. He's going to watch over me. And the same expectation obviously goes for mothers, but this is a challenge to fathers. And so our interaction with our children should not just be only negative. There should be a lot of encouragement, a lot of helping, right? And then instruction of the Lord. The thing that's going to instruct our kids more than anything else, and you guys know this, is our actions, right? If we go to church and we pretend like, oh yeah, God's really, really important, and then we watch horrific things on the TV, or we're just constantly at home complaining about everything. Oh, you should be thankful. Be thankful, kid. You have whatever, food and shelter. Be thankful. But then we're just like, everything sucks for me. What will your kid learn? They're not going to learn to be thankful, right? They're going to learn to be a hypocrite. They're going to learn that dad pretends to be thankful at church, and then he comes home and the real guy comes out. Right? So again, what does James say? That we take the word and we apply it to our lives. So the best way to be dads are to be dads that are applying the word to our lives. And so sometimes when we make mistakes at dad, if we provoke our children to anger, if we're unjust or we do something, we need to go back to them and say, hey, I was wrong. You know, when I came home and I had that little rager, that was wrong. Please forgive me for that. That's not who Jesus is. I don't want to be that way. Right? It doesn't, again, at no point are we saying that obedience becomes negotiation. So don't think because we're appalled, I'm saying, hey, be humble, that somehow means like I remember years ago, I was in an airport about 6 in the morning, best time to have kids. But I was by myself at an airport about 6 in the morning, and there was this couple, and you know, ever walked into an airport terminal and there's just 0 seats? Not even like an awkward one next to someone where you're like, oh, sorry, our thighs are touching, but I want to sit down, you know, kind of a thing. So it's just, you know, just that kind of thing. And so I sit on the floor, and I'm kind of sitting against this concrete pillar, and there's a family. It's a husband, a wife, well, a mom and a dad and a child. He's about 3 years old. And the dad is talking to the child because the child's having a freak out, and he's just basically complaining about something. I can't remember what it was. But he's being loud about it, being vocal. And the dad is talking to him, and he's like, now, mommy and daddy are really tired. And if you could just be a little quieter, mommy and daddy would really appreciate it. And I'm like, that's going to work great. You know, it's one of those scenarios where like you do feel bad for the parents. I'm not saying that that's probably biblical or excellent parenting, because the reality is we all know your 3-year-old kid, he doesn't care how you feel. And if your 3-year-old kid had 18-year-old strength, he would take the lollipop and kick the poop out of you. And we all know it, right? We've all seen kids running away with the lollipop trying to swat their parents from behind, you know? And you're like, you're 3. I could boot you across the parking lot. But they don't, they're just like, ah. So that's what they are. And it was really funny because they're trying to reason with him, and he's just getting louder. Every time they try, he's just getting louder and louder. And this was in the Georgia airport. And I think they have kind of a different philosophy of parenting in Georgia than we do out here on this place. And because I don't know, probably like a late 50s, mid 60s lady walked up, and she just goes, boy, you just need to whip his fill in the blank, you know? And they like kind of looked up at this lady, and she's just like, It was full Southern mode, you know? And I was like, why do I not live here? No, I didn't. And at the end, you're like, I feel like it's somewhere in between, probably, right? You know, you're not just like whooping everybody all the time, but trying to like reason with a 3-year-old and like give them that. Like that's probably not going to work, right? So there's a middle ground where we're exercising wisdom, where there can be humility, but there can be reality. And so please don't mistake anything I'm saying to mean we don't, as parents, enforce obedience, because we do, and we need to. And really the happiest kids are kids that know boundaries. That they know, like, this is where safe zone is. And I can do whatever I want here, and it's great. And I know that my parents are going to keep me secure. They have security for me. And there's a lot to be said about biblical wisdom in raising a child. But we don't want to let testosterone or this world, is whether they're more passive or more aggressive methods of this world or of our own flesh, taint how we raise and encourage our kids. We want to walk with the Lord as dads, have a real walk with God, a real, honest walk with God. That I talk to him, he talks to me, because we cannot instill in our children a real walk with God if we don't. All we can instill is making them do what we think they should do. That's all we can instill outside of a walk with God. And we want to do so much more than that, don't we? We want to encourage them. We want them to know God.